Hello, everyone. We are going to get started. As a courtesy, if you're on the internet and you can hear me, you might want to type to me in your chat window to let me know that things are going smoothly. It's a nice way to start us off. So if you see the chat window at the bottom of your control panel or your screen on GoToMeeting, just type me a quick note, even to the entire audience, saying, "Yes, Madeline, I can hear you." Oh, good. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. So we have an agenda on the screen. I'm hoping you all can see that as well. I've shared my screen with you. It is our fifth call, actually, of the International Future of the Secular Movement Coalition. And I am the policy director for the Secular Policy Institute. Again, my name is Madeline Chassel, if you weren't here earlier. And today, on September 3rd, we will have many people joining us on the phone. And I appreciate the feedback, George G. Thank you. I'm coming through loud and clear. You can see we have Edwina Rogers, our CEO's contact information listed. If anyone should need to contact her about arranging future calls, but all of our login information will always be on this page here at secularpolicyinstitute.net/conference call on the future of the secular movement. And I'll share that with you here in our chat window. So at any time, one final reminder to unmute yourself if you're joining us only on the phone. Rather than clicking your microphone button, you'll only be able to unmute yourself by pressing *6. So at any time, if you can't be heard and you need to share something, just press *6. John, did you have something to share?
Yeah, this is greetings to everybody. This is my first time on the call. I just want to do an audio check and make sure everybody can hear me okay. And
Wonderful, John. Thank you. And I actually see that one of our other speakers today, Jason Heap, just joined the call. So I will quickly skip to the end and just let everyone know that we have our member spotlight with you all today. John Krbo. Did I say that right, John?
Yeah, Krbo. Either way.
Krbo. Okay, so John Krbo, thank you for joining us today. You're a member of the New York Skeptics and New York Center for Inquiry, and we will allot time for you at the end to share everything that you want to share with us today. So thank you for being here.
Sure, thank you.
We should also have Michael Langer joining us. And Michael, if you are here on the internet, please let me know in the chat window when you arrive. Or you can unmute yourself now and just say, "Hey, I'm here." All right, we will assume Michael will be joining us. And Jason Heap, I see you are here, so thank you for being here, and we will give you the spotlight at the end of the call.
Much appreciated, Madeline.
Okay, great. So for now, you're all on mute again. And hopefully I'm not on mute. I can see that I'm not. Let's get going. So this month's agenda, we're highlighting one of our many advocacy campaigns. If you haven't noticed, we've been at it pretty hard, and we've been keeping track of all the hottest, and not in a good way, topics throughout the world on secular issues. One of them here, as you'll see, is the Nigerian 9 who were sentenced to death. And we've been at the forefront, either joining or creating many letters and asking for the full support of our 300 coalition members to sign these letters and support changes. In this case, the Nigerian 9 letter was sent out. We got many, many, many signatures, and we're asking for a meeting with the president and also the executive governor of the Kano state that did the sentencing to these individuals who were expressing their different beliefs. So at any time, if you have questions about these letters, you can always forward them to Edwina at secularpolicyinstitute.net. And Edwina, do we have you here on the call now? Remember to press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, so we
Can you
will...
hear me?
Oh, there you are. Yes, hi, Edwina.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to chime in about what's happening in Nigeria. So, of course, we found out about the 9 people who were sentenced to death, and it had to do with they were practicing a slightly different unauthorized form of Islam, in that they celebrated the birthday of a prophet who wasn't Muhammad, that was from kind of that area but had died several hundred years ago. And so the governor in the state, Kano, had said that, you know, he was going to carry out this sentence and everything along those lines. Now, fortunately for us, the president was in Washington when all of this was happening, the president of Nigeria, and had just met with President Obama and was giving a speech and receiving people at the Institute of Peace. So I was invited to that and went over there and was able to meet with him. But even before that, the weekend before, through a number of our fellows and some other people, they were able to get in touch with the head of intelligence in Nigeria and had been assured that the intelligence, the central intelligence, had gone in and had taken these people out of the state prison and has put them into a witness relocation program there in Nigeria. So we do know that they're safe. So basically what's going on right now is a struggle between the state and the federal government. The states there are very, very strong. They even have more rights and power than states in the U.S. So it's very much a states' rights system. And of course, we've been assured that the president is very aware of how this looks for the country, and the president was a former general. So it's sad in that, you know, the people have lost everything. They've, you know, lost contact with their family and friends and loved ones, and they have lost all their material belongings, but right now they are safe. So the follow-up will be to try to figure out an asylum program for them, because you know, they can't really prosper and live in Nigeria any longer. So, but thank you. We got the most signatures on this letter that we've ever received. More than 50 groups signed on. So that was very, very helpful. And we're still hoping for some follow-up with the ambassador here in Washington. Okay, so that's what I know about the Nigerian situation.
Great, thank you, Edwina. Is there anything from our overview section that you want to highlight for everyone while we're here?
Oh, sure. Okay, going right into the overview, I would like to remind people that, and member organizations are certainly calling on us for this and that, and we are available and we try to help in any way that we possibly can. But we can help draft press releases, getting press releases out. We pay for that really kind of expensive meltwater service where we have the contact email for all the press. I believe last time you checked, Madeline, it was like 171,000 emails for press. So that's quite the press database. And we can certainly help people with graphic design and brochures. As a matter of fact, we just got an offer 2 days ago from one of the bloggers in Bangladesh who is, you know, kind of on the run and looking for asylum, and we're trying to help that particular blogger along with a number of other bloggers in Bangladesh, but is a graphic design expert, and said that to thank the world secular community that he's available to help with any graphic design that any secular group would like. And then we have our other resources, and we help with website design. We've helped a lot of member groups with their websites. And we do have a secular directory. It's on our website, and we're trying to keep up and identify secular groups, science groups, skeptic groups, atheist groups, humanist groups, etc., groups that are for separation of religion and government around the world. At the moment, we have identified 6,384, something in that neighborhood, and there is a map. But we will continue to look for more. So that's what I wanted to go over with regard to the overview. And then I see next we have the public policy update, and I was hoping that we would be joined by Hugo So we'll I'll turn it back over to you, Madeline. Now, I just did get a text from Morgan Romano, who represents the group in Turkey, and she actually is not well and has been in the hospital. So she just texted and said she's not going to be able to join us on the call today, but hopefully Hugo is, because I know he's been very busy with what was happening and still going on in Argentina.
Yeah, the two of them have been very active with us, so I hope she gets better. And I want to quickly show, for anyone who is on the internet, show people a couple of things. So this is our website, always growing and changing. We do have an opportunity to get daily news updates. So you can click this button, Get It Now, on our homepage, and you'll be directed to some wonderful offers when you subscribe. But there are two options I hope you see here. You can select the weekly newsletter, which is all original content, articles, news editorials. You can also select the daily digest, and you can pick one or both of these options. And I would also like to highlight here a new resource. Nope, not resource. Let me find it here. Under our coalition, of course, we have all of our members listed on our coalition list, but we also now have our advocacy campaigns listed. These are the letters that we've been working so hard on. So the Nigerian 9 letter, as well as many other letters that Edwina has been spearheading for us to collect under. A Pledge of Allegiance letter, mandatory religious education in Guatemala, issues going on in Argentina that hopefully we'll hear about later. They're all here under Coalition Advocacy Campaigns as a tab. And because I am in charge of the Fellows Corner, I wanted to do a quick overview of several new fellows that we've had join us. Elliot Cohen is an expert in applied ethics, mass media, and philosophical counseling. In particular, he has done studies and has produced a book on the dangers of warrantless surveillance. And we've actually connected him with a couple of news sources so that he can get the word out. Sylvian Ionescu is a politics and global democracy expert, and Dr. Ionescu has a Ph.D. in material science. He is in Romania. He's been very active in politics there. He was twice serving with the Secretary of State and General Commissioner for the National Environmental Guard, and he's responsible for an environmental friendly material that uses asbestos but puts a safer spin on it. It's called Polybest. We also have a new member, John Joseph Kisaki. He is also an environmental science expert and does work in parasitology. He's from Uganda, and he has a master's in zoology, and he has a particular interest in teaching biology, and we love getting his perspective on our team. We also have David Wilson, who joined us not too long ago. He's one of our evolution experts out of New York, and he has created the Society for the Study of Cultural Evolution to make a particular emphasis on evolution studies in our nation and hopefully eventually around the globe. John Allen Paulos is a unique candidate. He is an expert in mathematics, but as we all know, any academic perspective can be hugely important to our movement. He's a professor of mathematics at Temple University, and he has written several books, including Innumeracy, Mathematical Illiteracy and Its Consequences, so definitely significant to our work in education, and also on religion. Irreligion, a mathematician explains why the arguments for God just don't add up. And as always, you can go to the Fellows section of our website, About Us, Who We Are, and I'm showing you that here on the screen, and you can see all of our fellow profiles here. So thank you so much. Johnny, I don't know if he's here because I know he was also not well. So Johnny Montserrat, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh, good. That's so wonderful. I would love you, our Alliance Director, to give us a scoop on the coalitions and resources.
Right. Well, the big news this week is I'm in Atlanta, Georgia for Dragon Con. It's
Ooh.
the Philosophyand convention in North America, and I'll be presenting a speech for the Secular Policy Institute, as well as for my atheist art project, Soul Burners. Work continues with the volunteer team, looking out for fellows, and of course, I've been working with our coalition partners, most importantly, the United Church of Bacon and the United Coalition of Reason. Don't forget that if you're looking for a website or some help with your marketing or working on a grant, you can ask us for help. That's what we're here for. I'm in a taxi, so I think that's going to be it.
Thank you, Johnny. And I know we have wishes sent to you, particularly from George G., who was concerned about your health. So hope you take those good wishes with you in your taxi.
I'm okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Johnny. Yeah. All right. So if we do have Hugo with us, Hugo, are you there? We would love a public policy update from Latin America. Hugo, remember you can press *6 to unmute yourself, and I will give you a few seconds to figure it out if you are here.
Madeline, I'm still here, and I can tell you what Hugo and I have been doing in Argentina.
Well, that's wonderful.
until he joins us. I know he said that he had planned to join us, so we can keep checking. So we did a letter because in Argentina, the Pope has gotten the ear of the president and has convinced the president that a law from the 1880s that declared that the education system in Argentina would be secular, and if there was going to be religious education, it needed to be outside of the hours of the secular school day. So this law has survived for about 140 years. And now there has been a push to completely cancel that law and allow for Catholic priests to start teaching in the secular schools on basically Catholicism, which is what they're particularly interested in doing. There was a short period when the law was suspended when they had a dictator. I believe it was in the 50s. So this letter was also very popular. It got a lot of international signatures. And what Hugo has been doing with his team in Argentina, so they took our English letter with all of our groups, they translated it in Spanish and sent it to the president. I also sent the English letter to the president and to the ambassador here in Washington after a meeting. And then they took the Spanish version of the letter and they sent it to every senator in the legislature there and sent me all the copies and the list of everyone that they sent it to. So they've been really busy with their campaign there, trying to stop this particular vote, which is also very similar to what we have experienced in Argentina. And I know that our colleagues in Argentina had sent you and I an email saying that they wanted to come on the phone and talk about, or at least listen and talk about what's going on in in Guatemala also. So until we hear from Hugo, that's a little bit of an update of how we have taken all the signatures and the letter and translated it and gotten it, spread the word with the people who are making the decisions. And we've heard from other groups. As a matter of fact, we have been getting emails from 2 or 3 secular groups down in Argentina who wanted to get on the letter, didn't know about the letter, didn't know about SPI. We're very grateful, now have joined. So it's been helpful in uniting the secular movement even within Argentina. Okay, Madeline?
Great. Well, that works for now. And if we do hear from Hugo, that'll be an addition to that topic. Why don't we move along to our project and member spotlight? Because I know we have at least 2 of our members to spotlight that are in attendance. John Krbo, do you want to take the floor and tell us about what you're working on? Here, and I'll unmute you. I can do that. Here you are, John.
Okay, cool, and I really appreciate it. I was going to ask everybody if there's a good timeline, if 5 minutes, 10 minutes, including a little bit of Q&A would work well for you, because I have a lot to cover, and I'm going to try to sum it up very briefly, but in a way that gets a conversation going. What's a good timeline for this?
I think 10 minutes would be good, John.
Okay.
And then we'll open it up for questions. Okay.
All right, sounds great. I think Edwina may have attached a slideshow that I made, a PowerPoint, to sort of sum up some of these two initiatives that I'm working on, and I'm not sure if that's attached to the agenda.
Okay, so if anyone's looking at the agenda, John's name has a line under it, and it's highlighted. It's attached right there.
Yes, and I've put it on the screen for everyone to see if they are online.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. Just real quick, my background. My name is John Krbo, and my background is Army, mostly special operations, language, and culture. And I've been heavily involved in applied science, mainly social science, in different parts of the world, from Afghanistan to South America to communities in Brooklyn, New York, for the last couple of years. And my main focus here, what I want to do is give kind of a broad breakdown and overview of what I'm focusing on, and essentially break it down into core components or aspects, and then maybe discuss how to follow up, who might be interested, and how to sort of keep this as a living conversation about these things. The first item is about the global implications of not just the secular movement, but about the idea of scientific literacy, critical and free thinking, and human rights. And I think that there is a large gap culturally, socially, politically, and in terms of the complexities of human behavior and human geography between the world of science and the secular community and the rest of the human, much of the human population and many problem domains. So for example, I just got back from London. I was in London for about a week talking. I attended the Quilliam Ball. If anyone's not familiar with Quilliam Foundation, it was founded by Majid Nawaz and other former Muslim radicals who then denounced their former ideology and became leading reformers in the Muslim world. They're huge advocates for human rights and sort of merging Islam within the domain of reason and science and human freedom. And I know these people very well. They're awesome in what they're doing. But when I was in the UK, I talked extensively with people, including ex-Muslims as well as Muslim reformers. And we're still barely in the stages of being able to bridge these gaps. So, for example, so there is a very big problem in how do we reach out within cultural contingencies and social environments where family pressures, beliefs, and barriers to critical thinking, heavy penalties for speaking out, things like that, create a huge problem for us in reaching out. And what I'm trying to work on is collaborating with not just the secular community, but with the field of applied social science, as well as people that are veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan that also have some really awesome skill sets in terms of how to work with the local population, how to work with cyber security, social media, information campaigns, face-to-face reaching out, and stuff like that. The idea is to sort of help bridge this gap globally and make this a conversation where we take some of the best tools of applied science and analytics and media, and we talk about different spheres of dialogue and discourse and expertise, and we sort of see a convergence, and that can sort of come together to bridge this divide. An example in the Islamic world would be the use of grassroots media on every single level, from television, radio, speaking engagements, engaging what they call tafsir, or the jurisprudence of the Quran and the Hadith, and trying to counter some of the radical messaging with moderate clerics, and then using social media to multiply the reach of the message and empower some of these moderate voices. And this is something I've been very heavily involved in when I was working in Iraq since 2005 and 6, and later at U.S. Special Operations Command in 2007. And it's only just now starting to become a reality, not through anything the military's done, but through what the Muslim world has done through people like William. So That's the first area of focus. It's extremely broad. It would involve bridging some of these different spheres of expertise, which I'm in touch with and working to do. And I think it's a good item to talk about over the coming months and years. And I'll follow up on that individually through more information. It's a very broad category. Real quick, did anybody have any immediate thoughts or questions on that end?
John, hi, it's Winter Rogers. My question would be, do you know about and have you been working with the two groups in Washington, I mean, in the U.S., we help them get their C3 status. One is called Muslimish, and,
Yeah.
And then the other one is the ex-Muslims of North America?
Well, I talked to, I'm going to keep most of this confidential for security reasons, but I talked to people with the ex-Muslims of Britain. And I did actually ask some of these questions about both groups, and there's some interesting things that I want to talk about there that I'd rather send over email than over the conference call. There's a huge problem with security, and I think cybersecurity is one. Confidentiality and giving some of these people the tools to securitize their ability to come out and talk and find and identify other members. If they're having a problem with 501 status, I'd be very interested in following up with that and trying to see if we can bridge that gap. I think it's very doable.
No, we got their charity status for both of the groups.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I did the paperwork.
Awesome. I'm still new to these two, researching the two groups, but I know there's one in New York, and I know that they do meet up, and it seems to be still a very grassroots, up-and-coming issue that I'd be very interested in looking more into. So you're saying in terms of reaching out to to these two groups, do they correspond at the level of conference calls, or are they still more or less under
I can introduce you to their leadership, and there's also ex-Muslims of North America Canada branch, and they're located in Toronto. Right. And they have quite a few chapters now. They both have websites. Their member lists, of course, are very confidential, and a lot of people use aliases. So they are worried about security, and they are starting to attend meetings. But I can certainly, on the side, introduce you to their leadership, and then you can help them with your good information.
That'd be excellent. I appreciate that. Yes. Okay. And I think the second main item of discussion I wanted to go into is specific to the United States, and this certainly applies to other countries as well. The issue there is about bridging scientific thinking in U.S. politics, and this is a big question that I think the skeptic free thought community should seriously ponder and talk about over the coming months, especially in light of the debates and in light of attempts by this guy, Charles Darwin's great-great-grandson, who's been heavily advocating for demanding that up-and-coming candidates participate in science debates, that they join the science conversation, and that it will eventually become just as odd to not attend these science discussions if you're a politician than it is to not attend a discussion, for example, on foreign policy. And this has buy-in from like people at National Geographic, from I think at Arizona State University and others. I'm not quite sure exactly the names, but the idea is that we have an enormous gap, and a very dangerous gap with profound human consequences between the world of scientific thinking and literacy on the one hand and politics in America. And I think this is an area that's been heavily somewhat overlooked and not nearly focused on, and I think part of the reason is because it is an inherently complex issue. We tend to hear politics, we think, disagreement, even people that agree on science will disagree on a bunch of issues and stuff like that. And there's also research by guys like John Haidt on the irrational nature of the human mind, that emotion and feelings come first and reasons come second, so we're all irrational and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think it is very possible, and I argue for this, and I've written a paper on this called two papers that I'll send out on science and U.S. politics. I think there are core issues we can converge on very, very beautifully that are areas of common ground that people across the landscape, liberal and conservative alike, tend to agree on. if we bridge the translation between these groups using the language of science and facts and evidence and things like that. One such area is reforming the justice system in America, and I think this is a huge issue for several reasons. I think firstly it is a humanitarian crisis. It is a serious problem, not just of cost to the taxpayer, but of human life and ruined lives and criminal records for very small nonviolent offenses. And I go into this in depth, and many authors have gone much more into it. But the other thing is that it is also a massive failure of scientific thinking, or a failure to think scientifically, because these are policies that are not held accountable to scientific discourse. They are not forced to answer questions to any kind of domain of right and wrong answers based on evidence, based on logic, based on reason. And so, for example, social policies can be a testable hypothesis. And I go into, if you want to go a few slides down, I go into this, and I think there's a separate slideshow I might have to, yeah, that's fine. There's a separate slideshow I'll send out on this. Yeah, right there. So,
And John,
for example, a lot of American social policies can be a testable hypothesis. You can see if it works or don't. You can discuss this openly with rational conversation. So we see alternative models like drug courts and community-based justice that really work and lower costs, lower crime, and don't break up families and communities the way the traditional system does. And yet these are not getting the resonance they deserve. They're not getting the recognition they deserve in our political discourse, including the major presidential candidates. So what I'm proposing is that we look at converging on key issues based on this idea of mapping of common ground across the liberal conservative spectrum. I think issues like corruption, money in politics, criminal justice, drug war, incarceration, things like that. These are all policies that are testable and that we can probably converge on using models of common ground political mapping and understanding how we think. Even though we think differently, we can still arrive at these central points of discussion and agree, whether you're black, white, rich, poor, liberal, conservative, red state, blue state. And I think one practical way to do this, and this is something I'm actively working on here in Brooklyn, New York, is basically to get communities, especially a lot of our more marginalized communities in America, to have grassroots, ground-up, community-driven, community-led, scientific literacy and critical thinking discussions that are taught, discussed, that are shared openly across the community, and that are ultimately owned by the nonprofits and the residents in the area, and the schools and groups and families and things like that.
Hey, John.
And I think the reason for this.
John, hi, it's Madeline. Just a few things. One, is that your line creating all that feedback?
I'm not sure.
Okay, just checking. And two, just so you know, if you could give us a summary about now, that would be perfect.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. So the summary is that we can probably, there's a big gap between the science world and some of these communities in America and the rest of the American population. I think we can bridge that gap. So, for example, if anyone's familiar with The Moral Arc by Michael Shermer and Steven Pinker's book, there's a lot of good things to say about how science can lead us to better ideas and better policies and better, human flourishing. And I think we can bring this down to the level of American communities and give them the language and the tools to better advocate for their own issues. And I think science can help bridge this gap and can help bring this kind of scientific literacy down to the level of the American population while giving a voice to these policy issues. And I think also working with the entire skeptic community, scientific community, et cetera, to to sort of bridge this gap between politics and science. I think that this is something that we can focus on, that we can converge on, that we can certainly arrive at some good answers to, and I'll follow up with that over the coming weeks and months. So that concludes the second item about science and American politics.
John,
yeah, with that, I'd love to follow up and keep the conversation going, and I appreciate the forum.
Thank you so much. And I just want to quickly, I'm going to give the floor back to you for questions in a second, but I'm going to quickly mute everyone because that's the only way I can control call-ins. and there's
Okay.
a lot of screaming in the background here. So I'm going to mute everyone, and then I'll unmute you again. So that goes, Edwina, if you need to chime in, remember to *6 yourself in a moment. That's better. Okay, so now I'm going to unmute you again, John. Great. And again, if
Okay.
anyone has questions for John, this is a great time. He's here. He's given us a lot of ideas and his time, and I'm sure there are many more to discuss. At the very least, John, what is the best way I can share it with the web group at least for everyone to reach you to continue this discussion?
Sure. So there's my signature block and my website and blog. There's two different, there's Reason Revival, which is both a website that I need to get back online here in a second. I'm actually working on building some more of it. And there's a blog, several blogs on this as well. And I can include all of this in an email that summarizes these ideas. And the other thing would be a 3-minute YouTube video called A Science of Social Justice, which taught moral arc and talks about bridging politics and the justice system into scientific discussion. And so I think website, YouTube video would be a good starting point, and a PowerPoint, a separate one that specifically deals with the issue of science and politics. I can attach that as well. And then from there, I could start different conversational threads with these different groups based on their sphere of interest and expertise and focus and stuff like that. And I'm based out in New York City, so I can certainly bring more people into the discussion.
Great. And just because we have you, is there an email address that people can contact you? Do you want to give that to us?
Sure. It's kirboj@gmail.com, and that's just spelled KIRBOWJ@gmail.com.
Okay, good. And that way, even before you send a blast out to everyone through our network, anyone who's here and interested in starting a dialogue with you can do that. So it's kirboj@gmail.com, and I've just shared that with the group via our chat window as well.
Awesome. And thanks for bearing with me. I know it's a lot of stuff, and I tried my best to sort of narrow it down to key items.
So, Madeline, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. So John, we should definitely work very closely together. We do spend a lot of time and are concerned with the issues that you're talking about, in that we get member groups who are experts on scientific topics or fellows, and we offer them up to members of Congress. Like, for example, you spoke about critical thinking. At the very end of June, we did more than 20 one-on-one meetings with members of Congress and their staff, with Dr. Linda Elder, who runs the Foundation for Critical Thinking out of California. And she wrote some briefing papers, and now we have congressional staff that are interested in getting critical thinking training for those that need it the most, which would be people who are incarcerated. So we are trying to get that language in a few pieces of legislation. They're going to be coming out in September. We also have been working on getting critical thinking training dollars for teachers in public high schools. So that's just an example, and there are many more, but I will just let you know that. So we do try to identify experts and scholars and thought leaders on topics, and we do try to get them in front of the decision makers. If you can get in front of just one senator from the state of California, they're representing more than 30 million people. So
awesome.
That is something that we work on every single month with these private briefings, and sometimes more public congressional briefings that all the staff are invited to.
That's awesome. And I think also, and a lot of this is very grassroots, like getting these communities to self-organize and teach scientific literacy, and a lot of them are very hungry for this kind of discussion. And then I think bridging this to the world of policymakers and the scientific elites, political elites as well. And I think there's a big gap here between them and many of our communities. And I think the language to bridge this gap is science and critical thinking. And I think it can give them a voice to talk about their issues while simultaneously being a vehicle to help equip them with the tools of discussing scientific thinking on the topic of human flourishing and stuff like that. And a final thought here on that is that there's a very wide widely shared, or at least a sizable pocket of people in this country, or of a sizable sentiment in this country that is very pro-science, that is very hungry for a revival of science. But the main, I feel like the main area here of scientific advocacy has been in the physical sciences, from Carl Sagan to Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye, and they all have been extremely instrumental in promoting scientific thinking, regardless of the field, which is beautiful. I think there is a massive gap in this country appreciating social science and how policies we make should be shaped by scientific thinking. And I think this could be a good opportunity to really discuss that and advocate that. And I think there's a huge hunger for that, especially in many of these communities. And I think that would be something worth talking about. And it sounds like there's great work being done that you guys are doing, especially in prison. That's awesome.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, and we did. I mean, we did a round of meetings with Michael Shermer and met with many members also, and we talked about the cutbacks in spending for grants for social sciences for universities
Right.
that is being led by the Republicans in the House. So that's something that we work on also.
Awesome. Yeah. I met Shermer. I'm definitely I feel like there needs to be a lot more of that kind of voice in American, even at the level of pop culture. I think we really need to work on bridging that gap. This is very encouraging to hear what you guys are saying on that. So.
And John, I just want to alert you to the chat window. Ben, who is a regular, very loyal member of SPI and our calls, has given you some great tips also on some other groups that you might be interested in. So make sure you check that out in the chat window. And
awesome.
Thank you so much for your talk, and I'm sure that there will be a lot more to discuss next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I do have Hugo now on the call, and Hugo, if you could give us a brief update. Edwina did already introduce the topic of what you both have been working on, but we'd love your perspective for a few minutes if you're available. I'll actually unmute you now, Hugo. You there? Oh, you're going to have to do it. There we go. Hello, Hugo.
Try. Now? Does it work now?
Yes.
Does it work?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. I'm sorry, I just joined like 5 minutes ago because there was some problem with the conference number. So I'm not well aware of what you were talking before.
Well, Edwina introduced the work on the letters that you've been doing, the translation that you did, and if you could just give us the current status of that whole campaign.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so you already know of the problem itself, the abrogation of the law that established secular education in Argentina back in 1884, which has been very important in turning that into the first country with zero illiteracy and one of the best how to say with the best results in terms of general education. This has been recently abrogated by the national government, and to demonstrate our disagreement with that, there was a very interesting reaction from and support from Edwina, and the letter written by Jason, who's done a great job at that. And so we presented that letter that was sent by Edwina to the President of Argentina and the ambassador in the United States. I don't know if there has been any reply so far. From my side, I made a Spanish version of it and sent it to different NGOs and to the leaders of the parliamentary groups at the National Congress. And well, so far we are waiting for some. I haven't received reactions, but from an interesting another secularist group that wants to join the coalition. So that's a good point. And well, that's what we are doing so far. Argentina is quite complicated these days because it's going through elections, and there are well, there are a lot of problems. If you've read the newspapers, you're probably aware that there has been violence, and they are cheating actually with the elections in order perpetuate the actual government in power. It's well, a concerning situation down there. I don't know if I have to go further into that, but what we are doing as secularists is very important, because so far in several provinces down there has been the establishment of religious education in public schools, and there is at the same time the funding of religious schools with state money. So that's a win-win for the church, and there's a need for confronting that. So I think we are on the right track, and the letter has been very, very well written. And now the next step I would like to do is to go with the press and have it, how to say, have the press take into consideration what we are doing and reflect the move, so to speak. That's it.
Thank you so much. We love getting your perspective also. Edwina, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to add to it. Yeah, Hugo, so we're thinking exactly the same, and Madeline's going to take the letter and put it into a press release and get that out and hope we can generate some press around this issue. And also, we put together an op-ed, and we tied it to the Pope's visit to Washington. He's going to be delivering a joint speech before the House and the Senate on September the 17th after he has his visit in Philadelphia. And we have submitted that with a newspaper here in Washington, hoping to get an op-ed printed on tying what's happening in Guatemala and Argentina with the Pope and his travels. And we'll probably be asking for and looking for something similar here in the U.S. with regard to religious education in the public schools. We also tied in what's going on in Ontario in Canada, where the taxpayers' dollars pay for Catholic schools only and no other religious type of school, only Catholic schools, to show their power there. And I know it's a bit of a holdover from the past when the Catholics were considered a minority there in the province of Ontario. So that's what we're doing. Still hoping to get a meeting with the ambassador, and certainly got those letters out and express down to the president.
Great. I'm going to see if we have Michael Langer on the line. Do we have Michael Langer? And if you're here via phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay.
He was going to try to come in from the internet in Brazil. He's in Brazil.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's wonderful that he was going to try, because we are getting more and more international in a very real way. And it's really inspiring that we're all coming together from all parts of the globe to tackle these issues. I'll just briefly introduce what it says here, and you can all read this on your agenda. But he is the director of an upcoming documentary called The Truth Beyond Belief, and it's going to deal with atheism, secularism, and the discrimination and persecution of atheists in America and also clearly around the world, investigating the roots of intolerance from a historical, social, and psychological point of view. So John Krbo, this is also probably a person you'll want to connect with, as are all of the attendees here today. Jason Heath.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, there you are. That was John. And Jason, if you're here, I believe you are, this would be a great opportunity for you to tell us what's going on with United Core and the diversity leaflets, which I'll show people on the screen. Hello, Jason.
Hello, Madeline. First of all, I'm looking at one of the blogs that have come up. Participant number 5, I know who that person is. That would be Rabbi Benjamin Biber, who's the humanist chaplain at American University. John, he's a person that you really want to get in contact with, because Ben works with probably 20 to 25 groups of people who hold sincerely held beliefs in a very open and welcoming environment there at American University here in DC. What we're beginning to discover is that the more that we have local activities of people that are prepared to go out and to put a public face to the message, that's what's beginning to change the tide, not just in terms of numerical figures of people who are coming forward to say, yes, I don't believe in a deity, but I do believe in doing things locally, but it begins to open that conversation. And so, you know, the reason I'm suggesting Ben to you is that we've featured him in one of our United Core newsletters about a month and a half ago, and that in itself has also prompted more people to do that in their own local areas. So what we did is we designed this United Core Diversity leaflet for the purpose of connecting individual people to local groups, but then the local groups then connect to national groups, and the national groups are starting to connect to international initiatives, which is what we're discussing here. So the basis of this particular leaflet is that we began to contact various groups of people, national organizations across the country that said, yes, we would be happy to allow you to use our symbols, our logos, not only on a flyer, but then also into something that would go onto our United Core website as a way of drawing people to it. So what happens with this particular leaflet is that we have an insert. In fact, we're just printing out an insert now for Spokane Coalition of Reason in Spokane, Washington, and they share a border with Idaho. And the way that this thing works is that each local coalition has an insert that goes inside this leaflet. And that insert is only for that particular core, that Coalition of Reason, basically outlining to everybody, here's what we have on our menu, so to speak. So as the individual person is talking with somebody at a fair or a booth, and I'll come to that one in a moment, or whatever kind of situation they're in, they're now appealing one-to-one on an organic level. And these people that are doing this know their situation better than I do here in Washington, D.C. They know how to appeal to local people. They know how to discuss local issues with people. And of course, they have knowledge of what's happening in their local area. But then those local groups are then connected to national organizations, which we have on this leaflet. And so what we've been trying to do recently with United Core is to help local people understand and recognize what is happening within each of these national groups. So for instance, one of our national groups is the Black Non-Believers, which is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Next year is their 5th year anniversary. And of course, what a perfect opportunity to not only diversify local groups who may or may not have an organization for non-theistic African American people, but at the same time, it would be an opportunity to do a publicity drive for someone like Black Non-Believers. So the local people are also aware of some of the initiatives and new ideas and new directions that are being taken by each one of the national groups that are listed in that leaflet. The joy of all of this is it's easy to produce and it's easy to use. We just posted 25 pounds of material, 25 pounds, for like $13 to Iowa. And Iowa's got every politician under the sun sticking their nose around, and of course with something like #AtheistVoter, what a perfect opportunity of having media, national figures, political figures, social figures, scientific figures. Everybody's going to be paying attention to some of these high-profile events. So 20 pounds of this particular literature that doesn't mock religion, that advertises as many people as possible, it is like free local and national advertising for a handful of dollars here and there. In order for this to really take off, we've started to push local community booths. And I have to say I'm really, really proud. In the last month alone, we've probably written 10 to 15 press releases all across the country of local people that are starting to say, yeah, if you equip us with things that we can go out with, that's easy talking points, not difficult to understand, and to be able to put it into layman's term that appeals to, to the local person that's going to come to the booth, we're beginning to find victories. I'm going to go back to Iowa as another example because their Facebook feed has nearly doubled in the last 3 to 4 months. And there are over 1,000 people now in Iowa that are paying attention. There we go. That are paying attention to the stuff that's happening here. And at the end of the day, by the simple fact that we're all trying to assist each other, not necessarily compete, but to assist each other like a cafeteria. There is something for everybody. We're beginning to find an increase in numbers. We're beginning to find an increase in people that are interested because they realize that somewhere along the line there is something that appeals to their experience. What United Core can really use help from everybody else. I mean, I have to admit, SPI has been extremely helpful with us, helping us set up the page, helping us find new people, allowing us to use the meltwater because that's what's allowing us to put it into the hands of the media a week, 2 weeks, even a month in advance with conferences and stuff that we do. What we need from other folks is just to stay in touch with United Core. Let us know some of the initiatives that you've got. Let us know some of the outreach that you're trying to create. We are more than happy to promote anything that comes across our desk because what we're trying to do is just to get local people active, engaged, reaching out, because that's really the way that we are finding huge success, is just local people putting stuff in people's hands and saying, have you considered that?
Doing for a while now is producing this documentary by myself, and I just came back from a trip to the US when I interviewed 16 people talking about the difficulties, the prejudice, the discrimination against atheists, not only in America but around the world. And the reason I contacted the Secular Policy Institute is that I'm currently doing a video, a promo video, to start a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. And I'm also doing a fiscal sponsorship with the San Francisco Film Society. But I have a problem that is, and I was listening. I can't remember her name. I'm really sorry about that. But someone talked about Bangladesh, and that's one of the reasons that I'm having this problem, which is I'm starting a Kickstarter campaign, so I'll try to reach as many people as I can to try to raise funds for the documentary. But on the other hand, I want to include in the documentary stuff that is happening around the world, more specifically in Muslim countries where we have blasphemy laws like Saudi Arabia, and the ones that, like Bangladesh, that even though you don't have blasphemy laws, you have people getting killed in the middle of the street. So, but then I get into this point, in this crossroad in which I have to decide, because I cannot wait until the film is funded through crowdfunding to go to these places, because otherwise it will be too dangerous, not only for me but for the crew. So I was wondering if there's any way we could raise some funds for one particular trip to these countries to do this segment of the documentary, so I won't, be exposed after the crowdfunding campaign. It's a kind of a tricky situation that I'm in, because having decided to fund the documentary through this process, which is crowdfunding, I have to work with, I have to promote the project as much as I can. So as soon as I do that, I wouldn't feel comfortable going to these sort of dangerous places, being like an atheist documentary. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was just coming here and ask people for their thoughts or suggestions or the ideas of how should I handle this project in this regard.
Hey, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go, and then I'll take it.
Michael, right?
Yes.
Okay, sure. It's John. I have a quick thought for you.
Hi, John.
I'll stay in touch and follow up on this. On the issue of security, I think that is a thing we could talk about. I'm working on a project to collaborate for crowdfunding, things that do involve some level of security, but also involve promotion of free thought, human rights, or humanitarian relief, and things of that nature. Kind of a coalition of the willing, so to speak, except not in a political sense. And also in terms of people that are veterans of war zones that would be glad to get some work going down, pulling security and doing some meaningful things abroad. I think we can talk about that, and we can talk about how to get a dialogue going among different groups about the very idea of going into these countries and using social media and documentaries to promote and expose certain issues and get a conversation going in a way that would be very appealing to people across the spectrum, from atheists to religious to anyone who cares about human well-being. So I'll follow up with you on that, because I face similar issues trying to do some of these things around the world. So thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then about your idea of raising money, we can do two things. One, we can put your request and your project on our website, and then two, we can summarize it with a link in your email and put it in our newsletter, and we can ask other member groups to put it in their newsletter. But you would need some kind of, a website or.
Yes, the thing is, yeah, I'm actually right now with my editor, and we're working on the Kickstarter campaign video. And what I did is that I did a smaller version of it in order to show what I have so far. And also the thing about the website is it also would become some sort of a liability for this sort of, and that's why I haven't done it yet. I'm waiting until the last moment in which I could do this trip without having any sort of record register of the project online, because I know how the authorities are in these countries. I mean, it would be really easy to Google my name up and and find out what I'm doing. So what I do have is some sort of a preliminary material here that has already been edited, that can show exactly what the film is about, what the tone of the film is about. We have already lots of interviews with very important people like Dawkins and Jason Heap, lots of people that suffered prejudice in the U.S. So I'm even though there's let's say three other trips that I'm planning on doing, another one to the U.S. and one to the Muslim countries and one abroad, in which I would go to Israel and England, Norway, so more atheist countries and more religious countries and so on. My problem now is it's basically me trying to, as much as I can, include this trip to these countries before I actually kickstart the whole thing online.
And
no
didn't
pun
you
intended.
say that the funding could run through the group in San Francisco?
Yes, I have applied for a fiscal sponsorship with San Francisco Film Society, and it's still being processed. It hasn't come out yet, so that's why I'm trying to get, I don't know, some alternate kind of ways to fund this particular trip, and this is the only thing I need. I mean, I need a way to go with a small crew to Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. This is what I thought. Primarily, try to interview Raif Badawi, some people related to the killings in Bangladesh, and have some people that were arrested with the atheist cafe sort of episode in Egypt. So this is what I was planning, and I'm trying to find a way to do that before the project gets a little bit more scope and has a website.
Well, like I said, write it up, and we can put it in our newsletter, and we'll put it on our website. Okay.
Okay, and can you showcase? Can I upload a video as well? Because I think that
yes,
it's
of course. Yes, of course.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All right. So back to you, Madeline. I think that we're done. Thank you, everybody.
We are. I appreciate, Michael, you getting on the line here, and we will meet again the first Thursday of next month. That will be October 1st. Looking forward to it.